Hi, welcome to Jacky Rom Investigates. And yes, I am Jacky Rom. So, welcome to my show. I'll be chatting to lots of interesting people with amazing, extraordinary lives and just having a little chat. So, let's see who we've got on the show today. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. And you?
I'm very, very good. But then you're always wonderful.
I try to be.
Would you mind telling my viewers a little bit about what you do? Well, you've got all these discs behind you. You're not a singer, are you?
Not this morning, I wasn't. No. I'm an agent, not a Tupperware agent, but a showbiz agent, theatrical agent, call it what you will. And been doing that for a number of years.
So can we go back to the beginning? Because you didn't start like that. You started working kind of from the ground up, only because I know your story. But tell us a little bit about where you started.
Well, I started working at James Music. Dick was, he's infamous for being Elton John's record label, DJM originally, and also Elton's manager. However, when I left Dick James Music, I went to work for the Fab Four, worked for the Beatles, and at Apple in Savile Row, and that was an eye opener. That was a real eye opener.
What were you doing?
I started off as a tape op, which before they had remote controls for studio equipment, used to have human interaction. So you'd have a young lad or girl sitting by a tape recorder, an industrial one, and the studio engineer would say, can you fast forward to whatever number? Can you rewind to such and such a number? Put it into record, please. That sort of thing. And that was long before remote controls.
I remember when you used to film things, it would go in a canister and then they would run it over somewhere else before it was played.
Ah, now that's the we would do that with masters.
Yeah.
And in fact, you had to be very careful with masters because anything magnetic could interfere with them. Anything on tape used to cause problems, and you get, like, for example, dropout, where it would suddenly go all woolly, the sound, or it would be go quiet in an area and cause all sorts of problems. And I'll never forget that when I actually worked at CBS Records, we were based in Theobald's Road, and we had a session to do over at the studio, which was in New Bond Street. And I was given a fiver by the studio, by my boss actually, a guy called Reg Warburton, his name was, never forget this. And Reg said, get a taxi over to the studio with this master. They need it for this session that they're carrying on with. So I thought, oh, here's a chance to make a few quid. So I got on the tube at Chancery Lane and I went through to Bond Street and got out Bond Street and went into the studio, gave them the tape, and I sat through the session. And then halfway through, the studio engineer was a guy called Mike Ross. He's still going to this very day. And he said, you came on the train, didn't you? And I went, no, I got a taxi. No, you didn't. You came on the train. I said, no, honestly, I got a taxi. You came on the train. Listen to this. And the tape was full of dropout. And I had to re-record the whole thing again because it was a master I had. And I've never forgotten that.
How funny. So where did you go next after there?
Well, it's an interesting one, really, because I decided to go into television. And I ended up at Thames Television in Tennington and at Euston. And I used to work on as what we call a cable basher. When I was learning, we just used to hold the cables for the cameramen in front of us and make sure we scooped it up so they didn't wheel over the cables along the studio floor. One of the first programs I worked on was Magpie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I can still hear that theme tune.
I know, for Tooth Joy.
It
was with Tony Bastable, Pete Brady, and a young lady who's a very, very dear friend of mine still, and she was actually a Bond girl, and that's Jenny Hanley. And I still speak to Jenny to this very day. We've remained friends ever since then.
Because it started as you had Blue Peter, and then Magpie was like the upmarket version.
I don't know if it was upmarket. I think it was more grown up.
Yes, all right, yeah.
Kids found it more grown up than Blue Peter. Blue Peter was making Tracy Islands out of, you know, toilet rolls and fairy liquid bottles, whereas Magpie was, I think, for a bit of the older kid, which was a bit more adventurous.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm aware, I don't remember any dogs.
No, I don't remember any dogs. So, all right, so you're holding all the wires. What happened next? Where did you go next?
Well, good point, actually. I can't remember, it was so long ago.
Do you know what's funny? I'm just thinking now, you know, today's, the people that you represent today don't do that groundwork where you started literally running and lifting and learning. A lot of people today,
You get camera boys and girls, or camera people, camera operators they're called now, because back in the day it was usually all men. Very rare did we see a woman on the floor in a studio. But all that said and done, today they come out of uni, or they go on media courses, which when I talk to some people that have been on these uni media courses, they still haven't got a clue about the technicalities that we had to learn. It's bizarre, really. There was so much technical stuff that we had to learn that we never ever used. We had to learn about optics. We used to have to learn about different lenses for different things, and we used to have to learn about cameras that go wobbly like that.
That's nothing. I'll tell you, I've had lots of wobblies today.
Oh, what's this? Hosepipe Productions, is it?
This is my bedroom, David. I'm doing it. Look, I'm this near the ceiling.
I know, it's a great.
Anyway, let's move on. I'm talking about you. So how did you move from behind the camera to being an agent?
That was an interesting one. I was working at Sky TV at the time, and what it is that you sort of, being outgoing, that I am quite gregarious. The average cameraman, I mean, they're just quiet. They stand behind a camera and do their job, and they do it well. I was quite vociferous, and
Really?
I would always talk to the talent. I would always talk to the presenters. I would always talk to the guests, and you know, you get on with people and you sort of exchange phone numbers. You get a mobile number, and the amount of people that I met doing that was incredible. And then it was easy to start helping bookers out with shows. Before you had people that were just celebrity bookers for programs, they were just sort of general people that weren't specialised in that field. So what they would do is try and get guests in for shows, and they would struggle sometimes. And I would say, well, I can get you a couple of guests. And they say, well, who can you get? And when you give them the names, they go, oh, yes, please. So I was actually assisting along those lines. So it was a bit of fun, but it also broke the day up, because camera work can be monotonous if you're working on news, for example. Or the worst one we ever worked on was home shopping. Sky were the first company over here to do home shopping. Used to go out 8 o'clock of the morning. So originally it was 7 a.m. For a few hours, and it was soul destroying work, you know, sort of doing pack shots and zooming in on a necklace. And I mean, honestly, it's interesting because we had a presenter back in the day. I mean, back in I'm talking about 1989, 1990. And they had a presenter there, a Welsh lad, who was a really good presenter on the home shopping. And his name was Rob Brydon.
No, how funny.
I know. And Rob used to present home shopping, and he was such a nice guy. So that's how long we've known Rob. And I wasn't at all surprised to see him do really, really well. I mean, he deserves it because he's a nice guy.
So what was your first kind of big client?
First big client really was Tessa Sanderson, the javelin thrower, and we set up business together many years ago. And we still work together. But basically in a slightly different capacity now. But Tessa started bringing other people in. She brought people like Kelly Holmes in, Linford Christie, Colin Jackson, all the, Jamie Bolsh, all the top athletes. And we started working pretty much in sport, then in athletics. Then we branched out and started taking on some footballers. And then we thought, okay, well, why stop there? So we then just started spreading our wings, going into musical theatre, going into TV presenters, going into kids, going into people. What we try and do is try and assist people in achieving their dreams that have got talent.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, they've got to have the talent to start with, because if they haven't got the talent, then you're going nowhere.
Have you ever had like the hairs of your neck stand up when you hear someone for the first time, whether sing, perform, act, whatever?
Very much so, yeah. I can honestly say the only time that I've had that I'd say in the last 10 years was with Joe McElderry. When I first heard Joe sing live, the hair stood up on the back of my neck. I don't think I've ever heard a singer whose pitching is so accurate. It's incredible. His voice, I mean, he's like a tuning fork. I mean, he's just spot on. And I actually remember taking him to a very dear friend of mine who's extremely opinionated, more so than me, a chap that you all know called Martin J. And right, Martin doesn't take prisoners when it comes to singers, musicians, and nothing impresses Martin because he's been there, seen it.
Let's explain who he is, because Martin J is a music producer, but in his own right, he was a performer.
Indeed.
He was in...
Well, he was in Shack Attack.
That's Shack Attack.
In 5,000 Volts.
5,000 Volts, that's right. And of course, we all know him for many years.
Sure.
So what did he say when he heard him sing?
Well, I took Joe around to his studio, and Martin listened to him, and Martin said he just couldn't get over how good he was. He said very rare do you find a natural singer. Mm-hmm. Something people learn, and they use their voice. Joe's just a natural.
And also, since he's been with you, he hasn't stopped working either, has he?
No. And to be fair, he's an absolute dream to work with, and probably the most humble person that you could ever meet. I mean, there's a few people like that. People like Anthony Costa, for example. My impression of Anthony Costa is incredible, actually.
Come on, then. Come on. What's your impression?
Hi, I'm Anthony, and I'm really nice to everybody. I never say a bad word about anybody. I'm a really humble, nice guy. In fact, I haven't got the glasses here that I could put on to show you. But
well, he is very humble, and he is very nice to everyone.
Oh, he's such a lovey, he is.
And he is a lovey, and he does the most amazing impression of you.
He thinks he does.
No, I tell you he does.
He thinks he does. He thinks so.
So where did you meet him? Where did you meet?
Anthony, I met him at Spurs.
No.
Of all places, in the director's lounge. I was up there one day, and he was. I overheard him. No, it was Mike McLean. He used to present the Big Breakfast. Mike was up there. We were at a Spurs Man City game, and Mike called Ant over. And Mike explained to him that I was Mike Reed's manager, Frank Butcher from EastEnders. And Ant just absolutely loved Reedy. In fact, Ant used to do impressions of Mike when he was at stage school when he was about 11.
Because if I just explain, I don't know what order everything's going in, but I have interviewed Anthony Costa, and so you will see all this.
Was it a quick interview or was it a long one?
In the middle.
Oh, right, okay.
Why?
No, because he is a man of very few words.
No, he's not. He was really chatty. That's so not true. I'd actually rather like to go and have dinner with you and him at the table, because I think you'll just be entertained.
The problem is he only eats kebabs. And I like to a different sort of.
You like to eat well.
No,
I think it'd be quite amusing anyway. So let's go back a bit. Where did you first meet Mike Reed, and how did that connection happen?
and that's interesting, that about Mike Reed. I first met Mike Reed when I was 16 years old at the Greengate pub in Newbury Park.
I remember.
And I was with a load of school friends, because we were at that age where you could go into these places and have a drink. You could have a beer with no problem. And Mike Reed came in with two friends and sat down and watched the show. And Ray Martin took it upon himself to suddenly look across to Mike Reed during the show and said, "Look, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Reed's in tonight. Probably coming to steal my act." Well, I mean,
I'm not sure that's funny.
no, it wasn't. It sort of put everyone on edge.
Yeah.
And Ray, bless him, had quite big nose, and Mike just stood up and he said, "Excuse me, is that your nose or are you eating a banana?"
No, you couldn't do that now, could you?
No, of course not. But it tickled me. So I actually queued up with a few people to get Mike's autograph, which I did. And I got Mike's autograph, and little did I know then that some 30, 35 years or 40 odd years later, I'd be his agent. Well, it was about 30 years. But it was really bizarre. And I was 16 at the time.
Did you represent him before he went back to EastEnders?
Yes.
Because that was a really good move, wasn't it?
Yeah, I put him into EastEnders. And then he came out and had a 2-year break because it affected him. It really affected him. This is another story, actually, which is quite amusing in one respect, but sad in another. Mike came out of EastEnders because he was extremely depressed, very depressed. The storylines that Frank Butcher was getting were just appalling. And they affect you. And Mike ended up in the Priory because of it. And so he had a 2-year layoff, and then I was contacted by EastEnders, and they said that they would like Mike to come back in. So I went in for the meeting with Mike, and they said, "We'd very much like you to come back into the programme." And Mike said, "Okay, what's the money?" They said, "Well, we'll talk to David about that." And that was how it was left. So a week later, I got a phone call saying what the money was, and it was really good dosh. And Mike said to me, "I'd only do it, to be fair," he said, "if the storylines are better." He said, "I don't want the same problems I had last time." So I rang the exec and I said, "Look, the only way that that Mike would come back would be if you change the storyline to better storyline. He doesn't want any depressing storylines. We can't do it." He said, "I'll give you my word, David." He said, "We're not looking to do that with Frank. We're looking to make him a happy-go-lucky type character, which is what he used to be." And I said, "Well, I need in writing. He said, no, don't worry, honestly. He said, I'll give you my word, it'll all be fine. And first episode back, he runs Tiffany over and kills her.
Oh, no. No.
So my neck was in the chopping block, so Mike was very underwhelmed.
Did it get any better after that?
It did get better, yeah. He got some good storylines after that, but it did cause a problem. And then I remember, even after he left EastEnders, I got a phone call saying that Janine ended up in the Crown Court over, I think, a murder. Was it Barry's murder? I can't remember what it was. And she ended up in court. And they said to me, we'd like Mike for a week to go to St Albans Crown Court and do the filming there on the steps outside and everything. So I said to Reedy, do you want to do it? He said, well, I don't really want to do it. He said, but what do you think? I said, well, I would do it for a week. It'd be a bit of fun for you, a bit of a break. So he said, okay, all right, we'll do it. After the second day, I got a phone call. He was sitting on the M25 in traffic for about 3 hours. And he rang me up and he went, Dave, I now realise why I didn't want to do it.
That's really funny. So I have a question. So our viewers, my viewers don't know that we go back a long way. About a week, no. So the very first full-length play I wrote was called Another Mouth to Feed. And you played one of the lead roles in this play.
I did.
And I really want to know how my play influenced your life.
Well, I'm going to have to disappoint you, Jack.
Oh, no.
Your play had as much influence on me.
I hate to think what you're going to say.
I can't, because you'd have to edit it out.
No, we're not. We're on the internet. You can say whatever you like.
Oh, no, I can't.
All right. Oh, no. But did it, you were, and I think you were about 18, maybe 19. So it was after you'd already started in the business. Maybe it made you realise why you were working behind stage and not on stage.
Well, there is that to it. As I said, you've got to have a talent to appear in front of people. Interestingly enough, I think everyone goes through a phase in showbiz where you can, that you see people that have got zero talent, but they've got an amazing amount of front.
Yeah, that's so true.
You know, that will stand there and perform. I mean, you've only got to look at Britain's Got Talent.
Yeah.
The people that come out in front of that microphone, you feel awkward for them, but they got no feel whatsoever.
What's next for David Hahn?
Well,
let me just explain. The company's called Celeb Agents.
Yes.
So
David Hahn Associates.
David Hahn Associates.
Yeah. We have two sides to it, because celeb agents, it's very difficult for celeb agents to represent somebody who's not a celebrity. So we have David Hahn Associates, which covers that side of the business. So we're a one-stop shop. We deal right across the board with everything. Next.
That was like, that's the end of that conversation. Well, we're actually coming towards the end of our fabulous chat.
Oh, it's gone very quick, hasn't it?
It has. You've been talking for 30 minutes.
Wow.
That's short.
It is. It's long for me.
So is there, hold on, before we finish, is there any story that's happened along your journey that stands out that you haven't told us? Anything you haven't told us? Oh no, I've got an idea. Let me change that slightly. Is there anyone deceased that that you have a story about that you haven't told us?
No, not deceased. I mean, we used to look after Colin Fry, the psychic medium, who's no longer with us. He was such a lovely guy, Colin. And also Derek Acora. There's a button in here. There's a button in here. I love Derek. Freddie Starr I used to manage.
Oh, did you?
Freddie for a while, yeah. I loved Freddie. However, he could be what I would call high maintenance. I could get phone calls from Freddie. I mean, I remember once, 3 o'clock in the morning, my phone went. And I got out of bed, I answered the phone because I didn't have a better phone next to me. And I picked up the phone. I went, hello? And a voice from the other end went, Dave, it's Freddie. I went, Freddie? Yeah. I said, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. He said, I know, I couldn't sleep either. That was Freddie. That was Freddie. He said, I've got a great idea for a show. No, not now, Freddie.
Sorry, are a lot of the artists high maintenance?
Depends. Most high maintenance people are people that haven't been in the business very long.
Ah, I can understand.
Usually the youngsters. Mm-hmm. Youngsters think that they're bigger than they actually are. Mm-hmm. Reality stars think sometimes, not all of them, some of them think that they're bigger than they actually are. They think that because they've got 500,000-600,000 followers on Twitter, they're big celebrities. Well, in social media terms, they are, but they don't have the talent that somebody that you and I would probably recognise, mm-hmm. i.e. dancing, singing, acting. Although some have gone on to big things.
So what would you recommend for, say, a young, talented male or female leaving college, done their training? What do you recommend?
They've got to go out and find agents. They've got to go out and find a good agent. They need an agent that believes in them, because most agents have got people across the board on their books like we have. But it depends on the amount of staff that people have got as well. Because obviously your big earners, you will spend and give them the time. But with regards to the kids, it's very difficult to get them away. But what we do is we like to try and push the new talent. We try and get the kids on board. And if we can, we use some of the older talent that's been around a few years to help with that.
And what do you, now, because of this lock-in and everything's stopped, what do you see the future of the theatre and making programmes? How do you see it?
I'll be honest with you, Jackie, it's not your fault, but I find it extremely irritating that the amount of emails that I get every day that I see from other agents saying, well, the industry's finished, it's all going to change, our lives will never be the same again, our working lives going to be different.
I don't like that.
No, it's not. What will happen is the minute that they have a vaccine that works for this, which they're on the cusp of, I can assure you, because I research it regularly. Well, I'm not saying it's going to be available so quickly. It won't be available probably for a good year to 18 months. But that's the only change in our lives. It's going to be over the next year and a half. And people have got short memories. I mean, the Second World War, people got over that relatively quickly.
I think people are sensationalists. People think they're...
Not people, the media mainly.
Yeah, sorry, you are right. Because yesterday, was it yesterday that it said that Cameron McIntosh said nothing's going to go back for...
Yeah, I don't believe he said it that way. I mean...
No, I agree with you. That's what
we all know Cameron. I mean, he is a good man. A lot of people out there try and knock him, but everybody who's successful, they try and knock, which is quite sad, really. I think that, for your honest opinion, I do think it will go back to normal once there's a vaccine and once everything's under control. However, the only thing I do think that will be different, that's been an eye-opener, because companies have been forced into it, and that is that you get large companies in the city or wherever where they've got 300-400 staff in a big office block. I think what you'll find is they've now realised that maybe 300 out of the 400 staff they've got can work from home with a computer and with a phone system now, what they call VoIP, voice over internet protocol, that they can use a laptop and work from home quite comfortably. So what that can mean is that they can reduce the size of their offices and reduce their overheads immensely, it'll be better all round, I think, because it means less people travelling to and from work. A lot of people won't like it. So a lot of people like to go to work. We all like to go to work. But having said that, though, I've been sort of commuting between offices and home for years. So it's not a culture shock for me to be working from home during this lockdown.
Well, this lockdown has enabled me to do this and to chat to lovely people like yourself.
Yeah. What else would you have been doing then, Jax?
Writing.
Yeah.
That's it.
And writing.
And writing, really.
Writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll probably be writing. Oh, thank you so much for agreeing to chat with me. I know it was a little bit reluctant.
Yeah, I am reticent about it. The only thing I will finish off with is a little story about Anthony Costa.
Oh no, poor Anthony.
Yeah, Salman Rushdie, right? Somebody found his diary once, and in it said Monday stayed in, Tuesday stayed in, Wednesday stayed in, Thursday stayed in, Friday stayed in, Saturday went to see Blue, should have stayed in. So
oh, that's so funny. I'm definitely going to make a date with you and Anthony. We can go out for dinner just so I can hear the repartee between the two of you.
Well, he's a legend. He's a legend. I love him dearly, and
Okay.
all we do is just rip each other.
I know, I'm doing. So keep well. All the best.
Absolutely, and stay.
I will, and stay safe. Yeah. Speak to you soon.
Will do.